Hello, good morning and good afternoon, and welcome to another episode before coffee. Rog is already awake, so I don't have to wake anyone up. Yay! We're gonna go ahead and start looking at news stories so we can tell you what's going on in the world. Good morning, good afternoon. Today on Before Coffee. No overall compensation yet for healthcare workers during long COVID.
Okay, now that took you so long, I lost my article.
I wasn't ready. You can't. Hey, we started early.
A trip to Mexico ends in kidnapping deaths of 2 Americans.
Number of female politicians stagnating due to misogyny.
Fed chair opens door to faster rate moves at a higher peak.
Thousands of Georgians protest foreign agents law.
And the whole thing seems insane as Tucker Carlson declares that he hates Donald Trump with a passion. That and more today on March 8th, 2023 on Before Coffee.
All right. In with our first story here, which I'm reading on the wrong screen, so I'm looking over there instead of over here. Healthcare employees have lost their jobs due to long-term corona complaints. Do not currently have to be automatically compensated. This has been determined by the court in a case brought by the trade unions FNV and CNV. This is internal Netherlands news, by the way. I don't know if this is happening in every country, but it's definitely happening in the Netherlands. According to the judge, it must be considered on a case-by-case basis whether the compensation is appropriate. This requires an assessment based on everyone's concrete situation, the court ruled. The unions has demanded amount of almost 23,000 euros per person. They believe that the Dutch state is responsible for the damage because too few measures have been taken to protect healthcare workers against corona. At the beginning of last month, it became clear that the cabinet is working on a financial scheme for healthcare employees who can no longer work due to long COVID. The House of Representatives has been asking for such compensation for for some time. It is not clear yet what the argument will look like. Minister Helder for long-term care first wants to see which scheme works well and how feasible it is. 150 million euro has been set aside just for this.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. In American news, a trip to Mexico ends in kidnapping and deaths of 2 Americans. 4 friends crossed the border on Friday, but within hours they were abducted by gunmen and 2 of them were killed before others were rescued Tuesday. This is a story by Natalie Kitteroff, Maria Abi Habib, Jack Nikas, and JC14. It took 4 people to dig up all the dirt for a small little story in Mexico. In Matamoros, Mexico, which is a border town with Brownsville, Texas, Zelena Grant last spoke to her brother on Thursday when he told her he was planning to drive to Mexico with a group of friends. One of them was planning to get a tummy tuck there. A tummy tuck. Her brother, 28-year-old Zendo Brown, was laughing, Mrs. Grant said, and she could hear her 3 friends in the car having a good time. They were nervous. But by Tuesday, the Mexican authorities confirmed that her brother was dead. One of 2 Americans in the group who were killed after gunmen attacked their car hours after they crossed into a dangerous border town of Matamoros in Tamaulipas. I don't know how to spell this. Tamaulipas state last week. Terrible assassination. The 2 others in the group survived. One suffered a gunshot wound to the leg. They were found along with the bodies of the dead in the house outside the city where they were being held, the authorities said. The Americans are latest victims. Crimes between was, blah, 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 bunch of background crap. It feeds the narrative that Mexico is a lawless place, that Mexico has no capability of its own to deal with its land, and the U.S. needs to do something. Says Alejandro Hope, a security analyst in Mexico City. The Biden administration may come under increasing pressure to do something. But it's border crime. Border crime is quite common. It's a poor country bordered on a rich country. Usually the border cities in Mexico are about 3 or 4 times the size of the city on the other side, almost without exception, because the people in the Mexican side work in the United States.
Yeah.
And they just go home at night. Dangerous? Yes, it's dangerous, but border cities are no more dangerous than any other city. El Paso is not more dangerous than Albuquerque. Albuquerque is 200 miles from the border. Albuquerque is more dangerous. So proximity
Especially
to the
with Walter
border
White
does
running
not
around.
mean dangerous. So they editorialize it on this story, as New York Times does way too often. They editorialized about it, so I kind of skipped that stuff.
Yeah.
Go ahead, your story.
All right. Number of female politicians stagnating due to misogyny. In a week's time, the Netherlands will go to the polls again for the provincial council and the water boards. Although the number of women in politics has never been higher, experts believe that there will never be as many female politicians as male politicians. One of the causes, misogyny. Figures from the Ministry of Interior show last year that female drivers experience more aggression and violence than male drivers, 55% of women against 46% of men. If we are not careful, the number of women in politics will stagnate or even decrease, says Lisa Mugae, senior lecturer in political science at the University of Amsterdam. Gender equality has never been as great as it is now, but you need to see that resistance to women in politics is also increasing. Today, as every year on March 8th, is International Women's Day. The aim is to draw attention to themes such as economic independence, sexual violence, and discrimination. I'm coming to get you, or you're a dirty pedo, Member of Parliament Marlou Jenkinsons of D66 in Limburg regularly receives threatening messages. After every tweet I put online, it hits the mark, she says. Sometimes it is so threatening that I have to report it. According to political scientist Mugae, the work of politicians suffers substantively from the threats. Dealing with the violence takes a lot of time. Then there is less time to deal with your political work. If you are less visible, this can have consequences for your position in the party and the promotion of women into higher positions. So you've got the catch-22. If you want to get more power as a politician in order to influence, laws and stuff, you need to put your face out there and say, hey guys, I'm here and I care about these issues. But at the same time, if you say that, a bunch of men on the internet will go, shut up woman, go back to the kitchen and make me a sandwich.
Well, your motivations are probably different.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that this is happening in the Netherlands, which, as somebody who graduated from the University of Amsterdam, can say that a lot of Dutch people are very proud that they have defeated racism and defeated sexism, so it's always interesting to read articles about how they didn't do either of those things. Fun fact. Yeah. Just because you think it doesn't make it reality. Yeah.
Oh, here's the statement. We have eliminated xenophobia. Unlike you dirty foreigners. Perfect statement. Anyway.
For the number to grow, women with political ambitions are needed, but misogyny can be a reason for young politicians to leave and for aspiring politicians to not even start. Says Mugae, this is a disaster for democracy. This is how you keep women out of politics. If we do not tackle this climate that is unfriendly to women, I fear the percentage of women in politics will not grow much more. Mugae hopes that more people will speak out against misogyny. Look at Sigrid Kaag and Sylvania Simmons. They make it negotiable. They ensure that it is not only something that affects them, but also makes it a problem for society. More research should be done into the root of the problem. We still know far too little about who the people are doing this and why they're doing this. The Limburg Jenkinson is going full steam ahead as party leader during the upcoming elections. I want politics to be a place for everyone, not just the people who shout the loudest. It really matters. It's beautiful and necessary for democracy. When I sit through it for a while, I think about all those green schoolyards that we have realized. Isn't that a nice quote?
In financial news, Fed chair opens door to faster rate hikes and a higher peak. In light of recent strong data, Jerome H. Powell said the Federal Reserve is likely to raise rates higher than expected. This is by Jenna Smilink, New York Times. Smilink? Jerome H. Powell, the Federal Reserve Chair, made clear on Tuesday that the central bank is prepared to react to recent signs of economic strength by raising interest rates higher than previously expected. Mr. Powell's remarks before the Senate Banking Committee also noted that the Fed's fight against inflation was very likely to come at the cost of the labor market. His comments were the clearest acknowledgement yet that the recent reports showing inflation remains stubborn and the job market remains resilient are likely to shake up the policy trajectory of America's central bank. The Fed raised interest rates last year at the fastest pace since the 1980s, pushing borrowing costs above 4.5% from near zero. This initially seemed to be slowing consumer business demand and helping inflation moderate. Which, I'm going to comment on that. That's nonsense. Since inflation was not caused by low interest rates to begin with, raising interest rates is not going to slow it down. It's just going to make costs go up. How's that going to slow inflation? Well, again, it's the only tool they have, so it's the only thing they can do. We're going to slow inflation by using the same thing we did before. Well, all it really does is it raises rates, so now when the economy slows down, which it eventually will, as they're trying to crash it with this ridiculous raising of interest rates up to around 7 or 8%, then they'll have a tool to speed the economy up again. But what they're going to do with that is probably cause inflation that they could control, possibly. But it's the only tool they have. It's like the old saying. If the only tool you have is a hammer, then every problem looks like a nail. That's the saying, right?
Yeah. But
a number of recent economic reports have suggested that inflation did not weaken as much as expected. While some of the momentum could have owed to mild January weather, conditions allow for shopping trips and construction. Mr. Powell said the unexpected strength would probably require stronger policy response from the Fed. The process of getting inflation back down to 2% is a long way to go. It's likely to be bumpy, he told the committee. The latest economic data have come in stronger than expected, which suggests the ultimate level of interest rates likely be higher than previously anticipated. So let's get somebody with an opposing point of view. They have absolutely nobody with any other point of view. It's more like, well, this is gonna bring inflation down somehow. Mr. Powell said wage growth, while it has moderated somewhat, remain too strong to be consistent with the return to 2% inflation. Wage growth will stop. Don't you worry about that, son. Your rich buddies will take care of that. Strong wage growth is good for workers, but only if it's not eroded by inflation. Senator Elizabeth Warren, Democrat of Massachusetts, suggested that the Fed was trying to throw people out of work, and that the millions of people stood to lose their jobs if unemployment rose as much as central banks expected.
Yeah.
I would explain to people more broadly that inflation is extremely high and that is hurting people and working people in the nation badly. We're taking the only measures that we have to bring down inflation. That's his defense. That's exactly what I said. It's the only measure they have. So again, I don't think inflation is hurting working people. The reason I say that is inflation was hurting working people, and then spending would be going down.
Yeah.
Spending's going up. If spending's going up, then it's not hurting people. If people were going, damn, I can't buy that car, I would get your point. But that's not what's happening. So, back to your story.
Okay. Thousands in Georgia took to the streets on Tuesday to protest against a bill aimed at curbing the influence of companies that are largely financed by other countries. Opponents fear the law could be used to silence government critics. Police used tear gas and water cannons to disperse the demonstrators. Majority of Georgia's parliament has approved the bill. The idea of the law is that organizations must disclose financial transactions from abroad. Organizations are considered so-called foreign agents if more than 20% of the company's funding comes from abroad. Protesters fear that those critical of the government will be silenced by the law, which they say feels strongly Russian. Civil rights activists also fear that the new law could jeopardize prospects for joining the European Union. In Russia, any organization or person receiving financial support as assistance from abroad can be declared a foreign agent. Since the start of the war against Ukraine, Russia has become increasingly harsh against critical voices in the country. The country does this, among other things, by means of this law. On Monday, clashes broke out in Parliament between deputies from the governing party and the opposition in Georgia over this law. My story is really short, but I will read this one comment that is on the article that says, Georgia, like Moldova and Ukraine, applied for EU membership last year. Unlike Moldova and Ukraine, Georgia's application will only be processed if a number of conditions are met. The closer ties with Europe is the wish of a vast majority of population of Georgia, but a pro-Russian oligarch has a very large influence there. It is therefore not surprising that the so-called Foreign Agents Bill, which still has to go through a second and third round of voting, actually gives the Kremlin the discretion to squeeze the foreign agents. This is what upsets the Georgian people so much. The protesters may have been resolved last night, but they are likely not to get over it anytime soon. That's a really useful comment. Avon got 11 respect on the website here. I'm gonna give them respect.
I'm sure Putin has designs on Georgia too.
Yeah.
He's gonna annex whatever he can until he goes to the little Putin hell he's going to. Wherever he goes. Okay, in domestic news reported by BBC, which is always love. But it's more or less Rupert Murdoch news anyway.
Yeah.
Tucker Carlson said he hates Trump passionately. The lawsuit reveals. This is from the BBC, and it just got smaller as you do that. All right, let's make it bigger. All right. Fox's Tucker Carlson said in a text message after the 2020 election that he passionately hated Donald Trump. According to new court filings, Mr. Carlson's message was to a colleague in January 2021 emerged as part of a defamation lawsuit by Dominion Voting Systems against Fox. The election voting firm accused the network of promoting baseless claims of vote rigging in the election. Fox denies defamation and says on-air comments were taken out of context. The latest filings in the case suggest Mr. Carlson expressed his dislike of the outgoing president 2 days before Trump supporters stormed the U.S. Capitol. We are very, very close to being able to ignore Trump most nights, he wrote in a text sent January 4, 2021. I truly can't wait. I hate him passionately, he added. Mr. Carlson, the top-rated host on a conservative network, also appeared to denigrate the Trump presidency in these private messages, despite lauding his achievements on air. The last 4 years, we were all pretending we've got a lot to show for it, because admitting what a disaster it's been has been tough to digest. But come on, is there really any upside to Trump? Carlson texted. Dominion argues that in its lawsuit that the top executives of some hosts of the conservative cable network knew that the conspiracy claims pushed by Donald Trump and his allies on Fox News programs with Winnie, love BBC, were false. but still put them out in the air. Previous filings have revealed that Rupert Murdoch, the billionaire owner of Fox News, acknowledged some of the network stars endorsed false claims that the 2020 election was stolen. A jury trial is expected to begin in Delaware in April. So I might go sit in on that. What do you think? It's not that far away. Might be up in Wilmington though. That is far away. That's basically Philadelphia. That's the story.
All right.
Tucker Carlson lies to his audience consistently.
We're still getting news on being liars.
Oh, this ain't gonna stop.
Yeah, of course. It's been a rampant problem for decades.
Well, since 1996, when they decided, hey, we're going to report the news we want you to hear. And that's it. We're going to call ourselves news, even though we're not news.
Yeah.
Well, MSNBC has an opinion. Like MSNBC doesn't call themselves the news. They call themselves MSNBC. There's no news in there at all. They don't even claim to be the news. Their opinion. They don't claim to be. Anyway, Fox claims to be the news. They're not the news. They're infotainment.
Yeah. Speaking of entertainment, Netflix is working on a docuseries about the singer and sex offender Gary Glitter. In media news today, the story was originally posted on March 6th, but I couldn't find anything else interesting, so we're reading it today. Netflix is working on a documentary series about the British singer Gary Glitter. The streaming service has confirmed this to American media. Glitter was released early last month after being imprisoned for sexually abusing minors. A 3-part series about the life story of a 78-year-old Glitter and his conviction for abusing underage girls. The series includes a journalist who tried to track down the singer for years to ensure that he would be punished. They eventually found him in Asia and informed the police. Glitter was imprisoned for several months in 1999 for possession of child pornography. He was sentenced to 16 years in prison in 2015. At the beginning of February, the singer, who is best known for the hit Rock and Roll, 1972, was released early due to good behavior. He has been closely monitored by the police ever since. It is not yet known when the docuseries will be released. Let's see if there's any cool comments down here.
The song it's called Rock and Roll Part 1, actually. Everybody knows the song. It's at sporting events. It goes like this. Hey, so yeah, every time that, I think he lost royalties to it. I don't think he has royalties. Right?
Probably not, yeah. I think once you get convicted of something, maybe there's like a clause in there that's like, you don't get this. But I don't know.
If he still had him, he probably had to sell them, just like everybody else who wasn't a child molester had to sell their...
Yeah.
had to sell their rights because they're broke because record companies ripped them off.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hopefully that's the end of that stuff. I don't know. Is that the end?
Yeah, that's good.
That's the story. Okay. So, we're back to Black History in Congress. And today is our first as Alabama in the house. Alabama representing. Literally. I actually use the word literally properly in proper context. Alabama literally representing. Today, representative is Benjamin S. Turner. Getting them right. Here? Right there?
I see it.
Okay, so we got the glare from the screen there. Right? We'll read his story out of Alabama. Benjamin Sterling Turner, a former slave and self-made businessman who lost property during the Civil War. Benjamin Turner focused on restoring peace and repairing economic damage in the war-ravaged South. The first African-American representative from Alabama, Turner tirelessly promoted the industrialists of his black constituents. These people have struggled longer and labored harder and have made more of the raw material than any people in the world. He noted on the House floor, since they have been free, they have not slackened in their industry, but materially improved their economy. Turner also struck a conciliatory tone with white constituents, seeking restored political rights for his former Confederates before Congress passed laws declaring general amnesty. His political moderation limited his legislative influence in an institution still controlled by radical Republicans. Benjamin Sterling Turner was born a slave on March 17, 1825 in Weldon, North Carolina. His widowed owner, Elizabeth Turner, moved to Selma, Alabama in 1830, taking 5-year-old Turner to live with her on the Alabama River. Turner obtained an education, most likely sitting in as a playmate on the lessons for his family's white children. He was sold at the age of 20 to Major W.H.G., the husband of Elizabeth Turner's stepdaughter. G owned a hotel and livery stable and permitted Turner to manage the business and keep part of the profits. Major G's brother James inherited Turner upon his brother's death, and Turner managed James G's hotel. Turner married a black woman, but a white man purchased her as his mistress. Oh, wonderful fucking times. Turner never remarried, but the 1870 census indicates that he cared for a 9-year-old boy named Osceola. By the time the Civil War broke out, Turner had enough money to purchase some property. He also looked after his owner's land and business when Gee left to serve in the Confederate Army. Selma became a hub for weapons manufacturing and was overrun by Union cavalry in the spring of 1865. The troops burned 2/3 of the city, and along with his white neighbors, Turner suffered great financial loss. He later sought $8,000 in damages from the Southern Claims Commission, but it is unclear if he received it. In 1870, Turner made a bid for southwestern Alabama's seat in the U.S. House of Representatives, claiming he sold a horse to finance his campaign. Turner noted that the lack of support from the numerous white carpetbagger Republicans who supported more radical redemptive candidates. Yet Turner had strong support from the black population, which constituted nearly 50% of the district, the second largest black voting bloc in Alabama. Running on a balanced platform of universal suffrage and universal amnesty, he defeated Democrat Samuel J. Cummings with 18,226 votes, 58%, in the November 8th election, taking his seat in the 48th Congress in 1871. Having witnessed firsthand the devastation of civil wars, Turner spent much of his congressional career seeking financial aid for broken southern states. In one instance, he introduced a bill to eliminate legal and political disabilities imposed on former Confederates. Though the radical Republicans in the 42nd Congress denied his request, the 43rd Congress eventually passed the Amnesty Act, clearing most former the Confederates' political restrictions. Talk about irony. He basically took himself out of power by giving former Confederates amnesty.
Yeah.
1972 Republicans renominated Turner for his congressional seat, but his popularity eroded in the Selma district, probably because a lot of white people got their right to vote back. Who knows? After his congressional career, Turner curtailed his political activities, emerging in 1880 to attend the Alabama Labor Convention and serve as delegate to the Republican National Convention in Chicago. He then returned to his livery stable in Selma. Turner eventually lost his business during a national economic downturn at the end of the 1870s. Resorting to making a living as farmer, Benjamin Turner died nearly penniless on March 21st, 1894. Benjamin Sterling Turner. That's his story, abbreviated, because it's kind of long in the congressional record.
Yeah.
Out of 10 paragraphs, so it still had a lot. Next story? Or this day in history?
That's it. Unless you want to do in this day in history.
I can do this day in history. This day in history, March 8th. British throne ascended by Queen Anne, the last of the Stuart monarchs, in 1702. Became the last Stuart monarch of Great Britain, and basically, that was it.
Okay.
And after that was King George. This day, Joe DiMaggio, one of the best all-around baseball players of all time, died. There's your question, the answer to the question. Where have you gone, Joe DiMaggio? He went in the ground in 1999.
Okay.
American boxer Joe Frazier retained his World Heavyweight Championship in 1971 by knocking out Muhammad Ali. Well, it's a decision over, not a knockout, over Muhammad Ali. What else happened today? U.S. Supreme Court Justice legal historian Oliver Wendell Holmes was born in Boston in 1841. In 1817, the New York Stock Exchange was formally created. And that's it, I guess.
Okay.
Ghana was admitted to the UN as 81st member unanimous vote as a free African state in 1870. Oops, I skipped it. I skipped the date. The date went away.
1870, well, it has to be 1 through 9, so one of those.
No, if I reload the page, maybe I'll reload it. I don't know. Anyway, it didn't give me the year. Well, that's the way it was today.
All right, then
More
that
tape.
has been Allison here from Europe, talking about how we have still not defeated sexism and racism in the country or in most of Europe. And I hope to see you tomorrow from some exciting news about that.
And this is Roger, United States. I gave you everything but the basketball scores. And I'll get them tomorrow.
All right.
Have a nice day.
Bye.
Be sure to hit the like, subscribe, and notify buttons, and follow our other channels, Toxic Alley, History of Gravy, and Scratchy Old Records.